Radiological anatomy of head and neck. The X-ray pictures of skull which are commonly used are lateral view of skull or plain skiagram and a special posterior view of the skull for paranasal sinuses. So first is the lateral view of skull or plain skiagram. Skiagram is nothing but radiograph. So this picture shows the lateral view of skull. So this lateral view provides an overview of the entire skull, and this X-ray is studied systematically as cranial vault, base of the skull and cervical vertebra. So the first is cranial vault. So first it is important to know about the normal shape and size of the skull so that it will be useful in diagnosing certain abnormalities like oxycephaly, microcephaly, hydrocephalus, etc. Oxycephaly is a type of craniostenosis where the top of skull is pointed or conical due to premature closure of the sutures of the skull. Microcephaly is a congenital anomaly where the head is abnormally small and the brain is incompletely developed. Hydrocephalus is the buildup of fluid in the cavities deep within the brain. So next feature which can be seen is the structure of cranial bones. So regarding the structure of cranial bones, the cranial bones are unilamellar during the first 3 years of life. After 3 years, the two tables are separated by diploe which appear during the 4th year, and the differentiation reaches maximum by about 35 years when the diploic veins start producing characteristic markings in the radiograms. The sides of external occipital protuberance and frontal bone are normally thicker than the rest of the skull. Squamous temporal and upper part of occipital bone are thin. Generalized thickening of the bones are found only in Paget's disease. Thalassemia, which is a type of congenital hemolytic anemia, is associated with thickening, and a characteristic sundry appearance of skull bones are also seen in thalassemia. A localized hyperostosis may be seen over a meningioma. In multiple myeloma and in secondary carcinomatous deposits, the skull presents large punched out areas. And regarding the fractures are more extensive in the inner table than in the outer table. So regarding the sutures, the coronal suture and lambdoid suture are very clearly visible in this view. The coronal suture runs forwards and downwards in front of the central sulcus of the brain. Lambdoid suture traverses the posteriormost part of the skull. The obliteration of these sutures begins first on the inner surface and then on the outer surface. Obliteration on inner surface occurs between 30 to 40 years of age and outer surface between 40 to 50 years of age. Usually the lower part of coronal suture is obliterated first, followed by the posterior part of the sagittal suture. Premature closure of sutures occur in craniostenosis, which is a type of hereditary disease. The sutures are opened up in children by an increase in intracranial pressure. Regarding the vascular markings, there are 3 vascular markings which are made on the lateral view of the skull. They are middle meningeal vessels, transverse sinus and diploic venous markings. So first, the markings of middle meningeal vessels. The anterior branch of the middle meningeal vessels runs 1 cm behind the coronal suture. Posterior branch runs backwards and upwards at a lower level across the upper part of the shadow of the auricle. Then next, transverse sinus, it is seen as a dark shadow, curved and dark shadow, convex upwards. It extends from the internal occipital protuberance to the petrous temporal. Then diploic venous markings, these are seen as irregularly anastomosing worm-like shadows produced by 4 veins: the frontal veins, anterior temporal veins, posterior temporal veins and occipital diploic veins. So these diploid venous markings become more prominent in case of raised intracranial pressure. Cerebral molding, which indicates normal impressions of the cerebral gyri, can also be seen in this view. In case of raised intracranial tension, the impressions become more pronounced and they produce a characteristic silver beaten appearance or copper beaten appearance of the skull. Next, arachnoid granulations, they may indent the parasagittal area of the skull to such an extent so as to simulate erosion by a meningioma. Regarding the normal intracranial calcifications, first the pineal concretions, also called brain sand, they appear by the age of 17 years. The pineal body, which is located 2.5 centimeters above and 1.2 centimeters behind the external acoustic meatus, when this pineal gland is visible in the X-ray, it serves as an important radiological landmark. So the other calcified structures which are seen in this X-ray are choroid plexus, arachnoid granulations, falx cerebri and other dural folds. Then the next feature is auricle. The curved margin of the auricle is seen above the petrous temporal in this view. And finally the frontal sinus. The frontal sinus produces a dark shadow in the anteroinferior part of the vault of the skull. So the next part of the skull which is visible in this view is the base of the skull. So in the base of the skull, first the floor of anterior cranial fossa is seen. It is seen as sloping backwards and downwards. The shadows of the two sides are often situated one above the other. This surface is irregular due to gyral markings. This surface, the floor of anterior cranial fossa, also forms the roof of the orbit. And the next structure which is seen in the base of the skull is the hypophyseal fossa. So in this view, the hypophyseal fossa represents the middle cranial fossa. It is overhung anteriorly by the anterior clinoid process and posteriorly by the posterior clinoid process, and the measurement of hypophyseal fossa are: vertical measurement is 8 mm and anteroposterior measurement is 14 mm. The interclinoid distance is not more than 4 mm. So this fossa is enlarged in case of pituitary tumors, which arises particularly from acidophil cells or chromophobe cells. Next structure which is visible in the base of the skull is the sphenoidal air sinus. So this sinus lies anteroinferior to the hypophyseal fossa. The shadows of orbit, nasal cavities, ethmoidal and maxillary sinuses, they all lie superimposed on one another below the anterior cranial fossa. And the other structure which is seen in the base of the skull is the petrous part of temporal bone. So this bone produces a dense irregular shadow which is posterior-inferior to the hypophyseal fossa. So the sphenoidal air sinus is anteroinferior to the hypophyseal fossa, and this petral part of temporal bone is posterior-inferior to the hypophyseal fossa. So within the shadow produced by this petrous part of temporal bone, there are two dark areas which represents the external acoustic meatuses of the two sides. Each shadow lies immediately behind the head of the mandible of the same side. So similar dark shadows of internal acoustic meatuses are also seen. The posterior part of the dense shadow merges with the mastoid hair cells, producing a honeycomb appearance. So these are all the features which are seen in the base of the skull. The mandible is also seen anteriorly, forming the lower part of the facial skeleton. The upper cervical vertebra lie posteriorly, and the cervical vertebra are seen like a pillar supporting the skull. Regarding the cervical vertebra, the cervical vertebra can be completely visualized in lateral view of neck X-ray. But in this view, lateral view of skull X-ray, the parts of cervical vertebra which are visible are the body of cervical vertebra, intervertebral disc, pedicle, spines, the adjacent inferior articular processes and superior articular processes, and also intervertebral foramen. These are the structures which are structures of cervical parts of the cervical vertebra which are visualized in lateral view of skull X-ray. So the next skull X-ray is the special posterior view of the skull for paranasal sinuses. So this X-ray is taken in Waters position. Waters position is nothing but the head is extended in such a way that the chin rests against the film and the nose is raised away from it. So this is the special posterior view of the skull. Here you can see the paranasal sinuses clearly. Frontal sinus and maxillary sinuses are very clearly seen. The frontal sinuses are seen immediately above the nose and on the medial part of the orbit. The nasal cavities are flanked on each side by the orbits above and by the maxillary sinuses below. The normal sinuses are clear and radiolucent. They are dark. Normally they are dark. But the infected sinuses appear as a hazy shadow or like a radio opaque shadow. So next, carotid angiogram X-ray. This X-ray is taken in lateral view. This is the carotid angiogram X-ray. So to take this X-ray, first a radio opaque dye is injected to the carotid artery just before the radiograph is taken. And in this X-ray, the internal carotid artery is seen to give an ophthalmic branch, and then it ends by dividing into small anterior cerebral arteries and large middle cerebral arteries. Thank you.